Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video. I am trying to hit 100k subscribers on the channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated. Not by the end of the year, by the end of the playoffs. Also drop a like, it only takes 1 second. It makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. 13k away from that 100k goal, so please subscribe, seriously, especially if you're someone who is routinely checking out these videos. I recorded a post-game recap for the Grizzlies Timberwolves game that concluded 2 days ago, and then my camera just stopped working, so I couldn't get the footage off of it. So eventually that video will come out, maybe it's just audio only, but I'm currently recording with an iPhone because this is what I have. It is an iPhone taped to my camera stand because I didn't have a phone mount for it. So dealing with what I have at the moment, going to try to get another camera soon. Fucking happy about that. But yeah, with that said, let's talk about Bucks versus Celtics Game 1. This is a series that I anticipate to be very, very good. And even though Game 1 wasn't as close as you might have enjoyed, it was still a pretty good game, although there was some officiating that was very questionable. And I will say generally appeared to be on Milwaukee's side of things. However, I'm not going to take this a step too far where I treat it as though a double-digit deficit was caused just purely by the officiating. I think the Bucks win this game one way or the other, but there were some questionable calls that are worthy of note. And I don't have my phone to look at the box score. I use the box score just to remind myself of shit for the most part, because sometimes I forget, something happens and I see a player had a good game. I'm like, oh yeah, that thing. So not going to be able to use that as a frame of reference and a little bit of a crutch. So if I forget some obvious shit, it's probably because I just blanked on it and didn't have a box score to look at to remind me. Giannis in this game is the big standout that everyone's talking about. In fact, I have a tweet currently going viral about the matter. Viral as in it'll probably get 5,000 likes, so not actually viral at all. But he had a really good game in spite of the fact that he shot very poorly from the field. As I had anticipated, and as I talked about in my video previewing the series, the Celtics had the perfect defensive scheme to bother Giannis. However, the way that you beat that defensive scheme is with Giannis doing exactly what he did in this game, and that was by being a really, really good facilitator. I believe he had 12 assists in this one and finished with a triple-double, even though he shot below 40% from the field. And that was because Boston's defense was leaving people open. And that's kind of just what you have to do to defend Giannis. You're going to have to bring some double teams occasionally, and that means that it's up to him to make the right pass. And we've seen in the past with Giannis in these playoff moments, he gets flustered and throws a turnover or puts up a bad shot or doesn't really take what the defense gives him. That's really the main thing, is that at a certain point, Giannis feels as though I have to score, I have to shoot the ball. So, I'm just going to force my way to the basket. He avoided that entirely in this game. He did not do anything that the defense did not give him. He took every decision he made was within the flow of the offense, save for the first couple of minutes of the game, first quarter where he went 2 for 11. He was doing exactly what I was afraid he might do intermittently in this series, which was he was trying to force his shot rather than taking what the defense gave him. But as the quarter came to a close, I believe he finished with 6 assists because they kept leaving shooters open on the perimeter. Grayson Allen, Wesley Matthews, who I completely neglected to mention in my Bucks Celtics preview, so that was a huge mistake, especially for what he brings to the table defensively. But Giannis, his passing was great. His scoring also progressively got better in the game as he forced his shooting less and less. In fact, if you take away his 2 for 11 start, I believe he's shooting over 50% for the game. But also defense, Giannis is always great on defense. There was a no call on a goaltend that he had, but in general, obviously he was a very impactful defensive player today, although we did have a couple of possessions where he made some questionable plays. One, Grant Williams had a really weak pass fake that was enough to get Giannis to go flying in the opposite direction. It was that looked very amateur and not something that Giannis would typically do. But in general, great performance from him, both sides of the floor, especially with his passing. And that's something that Kevin Durant was incapable of doing versus the Celtics in round one. He was not able to pick apart the team with his passing or be able to bring his impact on the other side of the floor. And that's really the difference that the Celtics are going to face, is that even if you do prevent Giannis from scoring the ball, he has a more well-rounded all-around game than Kevin Durant did. So you can't bank on just him shooting poorly being a free win. Another factor, Drew Holiday had himself a really good game. A lot of good shots that he created for himself. A lot of plays where he finished other people's passes for himself. I mentioned in that video, once again previewing, that it would be a matter of whether or not Drew Holiday was able to step up, because obviously with the absence of Chris Middleton, you're going to need some shot creation, and Drew Holiday is pretty much it, other than like occasional Bobby Portis face-up mid-range shot, which he did himself a couple of times in this game. But Drew Holiday, absolutely great performance from him, and that is going to be huge if he is able to maintain that throughout this series. But with his history of inconsistency, I would not anticipate this being something that you can bank on regularly. Outside of that, for Milwaukee, shooters just hitting their shots. Grayson Allen, Wesley Matthews, Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, all that kind of stuff. All those guys hitting their open shots. Drew Holiday hit his open shots, and that was a huge factor in their offense as well. Now, on the Celtics end of things, their offense was really simplistic, and it kind of felt like it was falling back into older ways. When I made my video talking about the Celtics, one of the big flaws in that video was I didn't mention enough how much more free-flowing and pass-heavy their offense had become. It's still by no means like the 2014 Spurs or some shit, but it used to be incredibly stagnant, and they started to get more action, more sets, more ball movement, more looking for a great shot and passing up a good shot to get there. But in general, that didn't really happen today, and it became a lot of hero ball from Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown trying to do the same thing, but he did not shoot well in this game as far as I recall. The eye test certainly told me that. And yeah, the offense was really simplistic. Milwaukee's defense was able to handle it rather easily as a result, which I think Milwaukee's defense, outside of Giannis and Holiday, there's no elite defender on the team. Wesley Matthews is fine. Everybody else is either fine to not great. So there should be holes that you could be taking advantage of defensively, but we didn't really see that in this one. One interesting thing about the defensive scheme from the Bucks was that Giannis's primary matchup defensively was Jaylen Brown, which he didn't end up often being the guy who was contesting Jaylen Brown's shots, but at least to start the possession, Jaylen Brown was his guy, and then they would just kind of switch it on the perimeter if, there was too much space. I don't know. It was very interesting. I don't even know fully how to describe it. It's like he was guarding him, but not guarding him, but not in a way that was like daring him to shoot, but rather just like if he strayed away too far, somebody else stepped up in his place, and it allowed Giannis to do that off-ball free safety stuff defensively. So very interesting way of approaching defense. Not something that you typically see. I expected Giannis to be guarding Al Horford in this one. And speaking of Al Horford, he was one of the few bright spots for the Celtics in this game as he went 4 for 8 from outside. The three-point shooting from him, if it's a consistent thing, that will be a huge thing in this series. But at the same time, this scheme that the Bucks have ran defensively isn't as reliant on just leaving Al Horford wide open. He found himself open for other reasons outside of just Giannis sagging off of him, because Giannis wasn't really on him all that much. So I guess maybe Mike's trying to avoid the obvious thing and allow those threes, and rather trying to do something a little bit more complicated than what I was capable of thinking of with the way that he was defending Jaylen Brown with Giannis while still allowing Giannis to be primarily an off-ball defensive threat. I don't know. It was very odd, not something that I anticipated whatsoever. Outside of that, Marcus Smart is a maniac. He got like 3 major injuries in this game and just walked it off. Robert Williams hurt either his groin or his hand. I couldn't tell, and I believe that took him out for the rest of the game, so I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. But the Bucks handled business in this one, and that was in spite of the fact that Giannis did struggle from the field. So as for what this series looks like going forward, it doesn't change my prediction, because I did say it can go either way. But I didn't think that Milwaukee would look so capable out of the gate. Like, I knew they'd be capable, but I expected there to be I don't know. It didn't seem like they struggled with Boston's defense, really. Giannis struggled with the defense, of course, actually trying to get inside the paint. But all the open shots were dropping. Giannis was making great passes. And it made Boston's defense, which is the best that I have seen since the 2019 Raptors, not look particularly special. And that is going to be a problem. I will say, if I'm going to give Boston any credit here, just simply less stagnant of an offense, and then maybe close out better on those shooters. But at the same time, I don't think those shooters are going to shoot as well on every given night. Yeah, just that. They're not going to shoot as well as they did today every night. And the reffing will hopefully not so much be against you in this one, even though, again, I think that's far from the reason they lost. It just was a factor. But if you're in a little bit closer of a game and the officiating does end up swinging things, hopefully it's in your favor, or at the very least not blatantly, or I don't want to say blatantly, but definitely in the favor of the other team. Either way, Celtics lost this game fair and square, and I do think it's very well possible for them to recover from this. I'm not going to freak out and change my prediction for the series because I still did pick the Celtics to win, even though I did say it goes either way. But Milwaukee was impressive in this one, and it gave me more confidence in them than I originally had, that's for sure. But yeah, that is it. Goodbye.